I always felt like our bumper stickers should say, "If you can't live here, you ain't right." Of course, it should be pronounced, "If you can't live here, you ain't right." There's a lot that's really vibrant about a city and about Baltimore in particular. I love its idiosyncrasies. I love the architecture. I love the accent. I love the malaprops. I love the arguments you hear on a corner between people. Life is ordinary in the suburbs, and I'm always amazed at people who, for a little patch of lawn, go out there. And what I write is the other America that is struggling, and Baltimore certainly has its share of the other America. There's so much about this city that is still vibrant and wonderfully so, and it informs all of the affection that I feel for Baltimore. I'm David Simon. I'm a writer out of Baltimore. I used to be a newspaperman. Now I do television. I've done some dramas, Homicide, The Corner, The Wire. I came to Baltimore when I was 22 years old, out of college, to be a reporter at the Baltimore Sun, and I was the youngest reporter at the paper, and I was introduced to Baltimore at an impressionable age, and I came to love it. There was a moment in 1985, I guess I was about 25 years old, and I went up to the homicide unit, and I brought them a bottle because it's sort of the thing you did. You were always pestering all the detectives all year long for information about all the cases that they worked, and so Christmas Eve you would bring them a bottle to say thank you. And I went up there and I actually spent the whole night until morning. One of the detectives, the great Bill Lanzi, the late great Bill Lanzi, he said, "Man, if somebody were up here for just a year and wrote down all the stuff that happens, they'd have themselves a book." And I always remember that. And a couple years later, when my paper went on strike, and I got angry, and I didn't really want to go back to the newsroom, and I remembered what Bill Lanzi said. And I asked the police commissioner at the time if he'd let me into the homicide unit, and he did. And a book resulted. Going back to homicide, I can remember the actors living here, some of them buying houses here, enrolling their kids in school, feeling as if they were, again, like the rest of us, invested in the city, in the city's future. And that went right on through to The Wire. There's something about Baltimore that gets under your skin. It happened to me, and it's been fun watching it to happen to other people in the crew and the cast.
You got to come to the city and check it out for yourself. I did The Wire here, I did Homicide here, and we're always, talking about the rough stuff, but that's drama. If we were going to do Desperate Housewives, we'd shoot it in Roland Park. But we love Baltimore, and I'm always going to be filming here, and I encourage people to come here and check it out. Not just the Inner Harbor, all the rest of the city is great.
I love so much about Baltimore. I love the Huns. I love the fact that you have a bar on every corner and a church on every other. And it's nothing like the people.
Yeah, it's always been good for me to live in Baltimore. Even when I went to New York to start my career, I was homesick for this place.
And the people in Baltimore City are the most honest people I ever met. What you see is what you get. They don't apologize, and they don't judge. I think that's a very special quality for Baltimore.
We're very forgiving, if you come from D.C., you sort of have to admit you're not from a real place, and that you acknowledge that our food is better and our beer is colder, and our neighborhoods are worth living in, and this is a city more real than yours. Once you do all that, we're ready to embrace you, but come prepared. Come prepared. I do sort of feel like there are things about Baltimore that are very easy and very understandable no matter who you are. If you live here for a while, and if you talk to people, and if you look around, there's a lot of very special stuff. There's a lot of real argument as to why anybody would want to live in Baltimore. When I drive down the street in Canton, and I'm looking at all the federal row houses all in a row, and the steps are scrubbed, or when I'm driving down Cathedral Street and I look up and I see the architecture of some of those downtown buildings, or the sculpture in Mount Vernon, or when you drive through Greenmount Cemetery and you look at some of the angels. The stuff that is known to Baltimoreans to be rare, unique, and improbable, you want that stuff to last forever. You can't quite find that if you head straight for the Inner Harbor, And you certainly can't always find it by watching The Wire, I admit, although we slip a lot of it in here and there. I'm looking for a place that has a little bit of idiosyncrasy, that doesn't feel like a chain. I'll go to Jimmy's, I'll go to the Blue Moon, I'll go to the Full Moon. At least twice a season, you got to go to Bricky's just for the lemon pepper spice, just because it's so different. I'm also a fan of joint Costas Inn out on North Point. I think they have great crabs. And wait, there's no beating Fadley's. I mean, there's the G&M argument, and I've had G&M. There's a lot of places that have stepped up in their day, but nobody has actually topped Fadley's for a crab cake. It took Starbucks a long time to get situated in Baltimore. We fought them off pretty good for a while because a bunch of regular folk figured out how to make a cup of coffee. I'd rather go to the Grind or Spoons or one of the local coffee shops than give money to some out-of-town corporation. I have a chip on my shoulder. I've learned that from being in Baltimore. Some of the smallest, gentlest moments I've ever experienced have been being a bystander to how people relate to the city and to each other as Baltimoreans. The trick is to tell the stories with enough insider affection and insider angst and insider worry and insider anger that other Baltimoreans, I think, recognize that it is something of a love letter. It's from a conflicted and often frustrated lover, but it's nonetheless a love letter. Whether or not I'm the poster boy for the Greater Baltimore Committee, it's not. I can't worry about that. It's not that that's not a good thing. It's just it's not my job, and I've never considered it my job. But I do get how certain people are that the city matters to them, and that's kind of where the love affair begins in The Wire. Begins and ends, really, is the argument that it would matter. However we end this story, however we tell this story, whoever wins, whoever loses, it matters, and the city will matter in the end to all of us.